Hey, it's Lindsay, y'all. Today, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of a pet peeve of mine. And some of this one is actually going to go back to the community a little bit. Certainly, it's something that goes broader, um, but definitely touches in the trans community a little bit too. So, the topic is gendered language, um, but in regards to groups. And specifically, I guess, erasure of groups. Because, like, I think most people are, well, maybe not most people, enlightened people, let's say. Um, Enlightened people probably are aware, have at least heard the argument that some language that is generally more by definition is gendered male. If you do it, sometimes it can be construed as sort of non-gendered. So, like, for example, when somebody says guys, like, hey guys, typically it is considered largely like, oh, it's okay if it's a mixed group. You can say guys. Um, but, I mean, it's kind of not okay. There are other things you can say. In that instance, instead of guys, that are more inclusive of the people around you. So, hey gang, hey y'all, um, hey everybody, hey friends, lots of different things. That's just a few examples. Things that I use. Um, things like dude, also, like, it's gendered. It is. Um, so that's the thing that a lot of people know about. And a lot of people do it across the spectrum of, trans, cis, gay, straight, whatever. So the other one, the thing that I really wanted to talk about more is in the realm of erasure, I guess, queer erasure of certain subgroups on in the LGBTQ acronym. So within that realm, I think one that a lot of people that are in the know are familiar with is bi erasure. And that's definitely a problem within the LGBTQ community. Sometimes there are people who will say, if someone's bisexual, well, why can't they just choose, right? Or they just want everything, or, like, I have known plenty of people who are bisexual who end up in heterosexual marriages. And so then they get disregarded or discounted or talked down upon by people within the queer community because they don't think they're queer enough. And this is a real problem. It has been for a while. I think it's starting to get a little bit more attention. I think you're always going to have people who are difficult in that regard. And I think it actually does come down to a prejudice thing. So that is an issue. So those are things you've probably heard about, maybe, hopefully, and can be mindful of in your language and interaction with those groups of people. So here's the real pet peeve. The reason why I actually wanted to make this video, however many minutes in that we already are, within the trans community. Okay. The trans community is made up of lots of people, of lots of backgrounds. You have people who are assigned male at birth. You have people who are assigned female at birth. And ostensibly, there are people who are intersex in there, but I think for the most part, you don't really get assigned intersex at birth. They lump you into one of the two categories. Okay. And then you have a pretty reasonable split of, trans women and trans men Like the numbers, I think, are actually pretty even. And I don't know where non-binary individuals fit into that grouping and what the numbers are like. I apologize. But it's not an insignificant number. There are plenty of non-binary people. And so the problem that I see in the community a lot in the, year and a quarter that I've been in this world is erasure of identities that are not trans feminine. And what do I mean by that? So if you're in a mixed community that's not like specifically for trans feminine individuals, and somebody will ask a question and they have a dialogue and they're talking about it and they're like, okay, thanks ladies, or thanks girls, or when they pop in and like, hey girls, how's everybody doing tonight? Like, I get it. You are excited about your gender. You are excited about being part of womanity, femininity, womanhood. Women. You're excited to be a woman amongst other women, and you want to feel included in that. You want to use the appropriate language. The problem is, you are not in a space that is exclusively trans women. Okay, so it's bad enough. Like, trans men often do not feel welcome in a lot of like mixed online spaces. And I think non-binary folks as well, unless it's specific to them, like certainly in the groups that I'm in, we definitely see way more trans women. And the numbers show, like I said, there are not more trans women than there are trans men. So there's various reasons for why these groups break down this way and why the trans women are overrepresented. Part of the thing is I think it's cultural. If you go back 20, 30 years and you look at representations in the media, shitty as they were, it was all trans women. People don't think about people didn't know about trans men. You would see trans women a lot on like Jerry Springer or as the the villain in some show or movie or whatever. Fuck you, Ace Ventura, for example. But trans men just weren't talked about. So it sucks that there's been that erasure, but then within communities, you get it too. And like, look, I'm trans feminine. You're not going to offend me innately by saying, hey ladies, when you come into a space like that. But it pisses me off for my friends who are guys and NBs, and you are just ignoring them. You are ignoring their existence. You are invalidating them as a part of the trans community as a whole. This is a super pet peeve of mine, and I've corrected people on it before. And yeah, you know what? I feel a little bit like a dick, maybe. But, like, it's almost like misgendering a little bit, And I don't know. I think maybe it's more just not thinking. You're not thinking. Like I said, you're excited about your gender and being able to be a part of that. But we have got to stop excluding each other from things. And I think that's another thing. That's another part of it is I think especially like if you're a little bit older like me, when you come out and you accept who you are, you don't have as much experience in these marginalized groups, especially if you're white. If you were white and you were ostensibly cishet before you came out, your worldview is very limited. Like, sorry, you come from a lot of privilege. And so unless you have actively sought out those communities and those friendships and those connections because you believe in the importance of diversity and just having a wider view of the world, this is not something that you've ever thought about, I'm sure. So then once you are in those communities, you are still, a lot of people, I won't say you for all, but A lot of people still get stuck in that mindset, I think, in my opinion, based on my observations. I think they get stuck in that mindset. It's very egocentric, I guess. And especially, like, I'm going to pick on white trans women. All right. You grew up just the same as I did as a white guy, and the world revolved around you, and you had all the privilege in the world. First off, that sucks. White male privilege sucks. It always has. I've always known it. Even when I was benefiting from it, it made me feel icky. And I hope if you are a white male and you're watching this, it makes you feel icky too, because white male privilege fucking sucks. But if you are a white trans woman, especially if you were identified as straight before, and you are all of a sudden you realize, oh my God, I'm trans and I'm a woman, and you still have that background and that mindset and that attitude a lot of the time of that white male privilege and that white male egocentric attitude. Snap the fuck out of it. Like, first off, like, okay, like, we got to get over that. You have to open your eyes to the broader world. You have to open your eyes to how your language affects people, because you didn't have to care about it before. People are going to start holding you more accountable. You don't hold the sway and the power in society like you used to. But also, like, once you're in the community, like, expect that people in the community are going to hold you accountable, because you can't be a dick like that. I mean, look, you can, and there are plenty of cis people in the queer community who are dicks and super focused on their own world. There are plenty of cis gay men who, like, they only care about cis gay men as far as LGBTQ anything, and there are plenty of cis lesbians that definitely only care about, you know, other cis lesbians to the exclusion of everyone else. If you're a trans lesbian, there are some real turfy women out there who are like, you know, anything that's ever touched a penis anytime ever. So if you're a trans woman, or if you're a bisexual woman, or if you are a lesbian who is a late bloomer and, you know, dated and lived as cis or as straight or bi before coming out as gay, there are lesbians who out there who literally want nothing to do with you ever. And there's reasons for it, and there's multiple reasons for it, and I've heard them. I don't care, frankly. Like, it's stupid. We got to stop being so exclusionary in all of these groups. And look, I have no right to speak as a representative for LGBTQ people as a whole, and I'm definitely not trying to do that. I'm very new to this world and this community myself. But I do tend to think of myself as progressive and inclusive. And I always have. So, again, I say to my white trans women friends, family, I'm going to say family. I'm not necessarily friends with you, but we are a family in a sense. Cut that shit out. Be mindful of your language. Be mindful of the groups you're in. Be mindful of the people around you so that you're not alienating people. We're going to get alienated enough. Alienated. Did I say alienated? I feel like I slurred that. We're going to get alienated enough by a society just for being trans. Let's try to be mindful and inclusive of our language and supportive of each other. Trans women, support your trans brothers. Support your trans NB siblings. All right? Trans men, support your trans sisters. I know some of them are real bitches and real selfish. we're not all, and some of us are trying to make it better. Let's all be friends here. You know, support your trans guys, support your NB siblings, and then non-binary folks. Support the rest of us too. God, I've known a few people who were non-binary who were like super anti anything else. It was like they were super anarchist, anti-establishment, anti-binary, anything. Like, cut that shit out, okay? God, like I knew a couple, and one of them was non-binary, and one of them was trans femme, and they were like anti-cis. Like I call them cisphobic. Unfortunately, they gave me some really bad advice before I realized this about them, and I took some of it and used it in my marriage when that was still a thing, and that didn't go terribly well. And then later, people were like, "Hey, maybe that was a little aggressive." But it's funny. Like I've used the analogy of the X-Men. Okay, bear with me. So the X-Men are different, right? Mutants are different, and it's bad. I shouldn't compare trans people to mutants, but mutants in the X-Men sense, and that they're different. There's something innately different about them from the day that they were born, and they face prejudice for that, and they are set apart by it. They are often, sometimes they can pass for non-mutants, and sometimes they're very visibly and obviously mutants, and there's nothing to really be done about it. Okay? You have this group that's set aside. So then you have two main factions here, okay? You have the X-Men on the one hand, and the X-Men are all about coexisting peacefully and recognizing, they are different and they are a minority, but they deserve equal rights as everyone does, okay? Then you have the Brotherhood of Mutants, Magneto's crew, okay? They feel superior in some way, They feel they hold a grudge against people who have mistreated them. And, Magneto in particular, dude was, tortured by Nazis, lost his whole family in concentration camp. And this is by non-mutant people who had prejudice against mutants as part of this, There's all kinds of major prejudiced human groups, non-mutant humans, I should say, groups that are always trying to attack mutants and take away their rights and all of this stuff. So you've got the Brotherhood over here that's like, nah, fuck that. We're better and we don't need you, and we're going to do our own thing. We're going to start our own society with hookers and blackjack. And you know what? Forget the blackjack. So that's how I feel like this one couple was. They're like the Brotherhood. They're trans first. Trans is best. And everybody else sucks. And they're just out to get us. And we need to get them first, in a sense. So be like the X-Men. Be inclusive. Go for peaceful coexistence with everyone. Be inclusive in your language. Because here's the other part of it. We're a big old minority. And by big old, I mean a little old minority. We're a small group. There's a reason why we don't get as much attention. There's a reason why the medical knowledge is not studied or advanced enough. Because we're such a small group, we don't matter to a lot of people. Only reason we matter now in the eyes of a lot of people is because we're a political talking point. Okay? But that's not cool. But we're here. People are aware of us now. So that's the only, one of the only good things about some of the political shit is it just does make us feel visible to people who don't hate us and who want to understand. So Where was I going with that? Oh, right. We're a minority. That's where I was going with that. We are a minority. You, as a minority, can't do everything yourself. You can't get equality by staying insular as a minority. You have to work with other groups, especially if there is a particular group that is, a majority as opposed to just other like mixed groups. Like, so as trans, you've got trans people and then you've got cis people, right? Like, we're not going to get that much done by ourselves. But if we can take some of these people, the good people here, and the good people who are like allies and who believe in inclusiveness and diversity and acceptance and live and let live, and you are welcome to be a part of our society. Like, we need these people. We do. Also, you're not going to have much of a society if it's just these people over here. And you're going to have a very narrow worldview. And you're going to be very bitter because there's all of this world out here that is all of this world. And you're excluding all of these people and everything that they bring to the table and their experiences. So maybe that's its own kind of erasure. To come back to around what this was talking about is sort of trans people who have this idea of cis erasure. Like, pretend that cis people don't exist or that they're inferior in some way. My message overall, cut that shit out. We're all people. We're all part of this society. We all deserve love. We all deserve rights. We all deserve to be acknowledged and accepted. Change your language if the language is the problem. Change your attitude if your attitude is the problem. Why is that so hard? If it was a product of your upbringing, times change, people change, attitudes change. It's not an excuse. It's a reason. It's an explanation. But it's a bullshit excuse. You can do better. We can all do better. No. That's Lindsay's words of wisdom for the day. If you have any thoughts on this, any questions, comments, leave them below. I would love to hear your opinions. People don't leave enough comments on my videos. I want to hear them. I do. I want to hear your take. I have one friend who comments on a lot of my videos, and that's awesome. He's my VIP. Thanks, Spring. You're cool. Everybody else, step up your game. I want to hear from you. So if you haven't already, and I bet you probably have, but if you haven't, make sure you like, you subscribe, follow, whatever they call that. Like, subscribe, follow. Hit the little thingy that makes sure that you get notifications, because I have a lot of people that tell me I'm like, hey, I made like 5 more videos. And they're like, oh my God, I didn't know you did that. Like, YouTube has systems built in to notify you, but you have to opt into it. So do that. Okay? Do it. Because you love me, because you care. All right. That's all I got. Until next time, kids. Love and hugs.